Hello and good afternoon friends, welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, with our ongoing series on computer networks and graphs, today we would be talking on medium access control protocols, and for this discussion we have once again with us in our studios Dr. D.K. Lobial. Dr. D.K. Lobial is a professor in JNU, so let's welcome Dr. D.K. Lobial and let's try to grab maximum knowledge through him. So Dr. Lobial, welcome to the EduSet lecture.
Thank you, madam. And our previous lecture was on the data link control layer, and if you take data link layer, it is divided into two parts. One is called logical link control, that is upper layer, and the lower layer is called medium access control. Why it is two layers, that is what we talked, is because we have different technology or different protocols used as using different mediums at the medium access level. So therefore, to make it independent, that is the upper layers are independent of the medium access or the medium use, we have a logical link control which will provide an interface to different mediums where we can have access to the mediums. That is what the idea is. And in this we will give a little brief introduction what medium access control or multiple access control, and then we will be talking about few protocols which may be covered in this course, that is Aloha, CSMA and CSMA CD. That is what the whole lecture will go about. Now let me talk about multiple access protocols where medium access control is one of the part. Now the moment we talk of multiple access protocols, in a data network the medium is shared. That is, the medium is not dedicated to two communicating parties. That is like in telephone network, as I have been talking about, when a sender or a person who wants to talk connects the phone to the receiving end. When the connection is established, that means there is a dedicated link. No other users can use that link. But in case of data networks, it is shared link. When it is shared link, that is multiple stations will share the link or will share the medium. So therefore, the multiple stations would try to access the medium at the same time. That is what multiple access mean. That is, multiple stations will try to access the medium simultaneously or may attempt to access it. Now if that happens, if more than one station try to access the medium at the same time, then the communication will not be possible. Like say for example, if the air in which I am talking right now is a medium, while I am talking, if somebody also in this room starts talking, then the communication will not be possible, because this air medium in which the sound signals are travelling are shared while I am talking, and if 2-3 more people also talk, they are sharing the same air medium. While this is happening, if the multiple, that I have a same frequency band and the other person will also have a same frequency spectrum, if more than one is using the same frequency spectrum in the same medium, then the signals will interfere or collide and communication will not be possible. So therefore, how to give access to the medium so that only one station at a time will be able to communicate. So the access to the medium is very, very important when multiple stations are trying to access. Therefore, the multiple access protocols are divided into 3 groups. Now if you look at this figure, we have on the left random access protocols, then in the middle is a controlled access, or we can say also scheduled access protocols. Then we have channelization protocols. So in random access we have multiple access, or it may be CSMA, I will tell the full form of this, and then CSMA CD, then CSMA CA, where a random access means any station which is ready to access the medium can access the medium. That is what random means. In a control access protocol means even if multiple stations are ready to access the channel, then all stations will not be provide access. There will be a schedule or there will be a reservation. The station which are reserved the channel will only be able to access the channel. So, before a channel access in controlled access protocols, the channel are reserved or a schedule is maintained. That is, schedule means who will access the medium when. So, if we have a schedule, so a station according to the schedule they will access, like for in a classroom the time slots are given. That means somebody will teach a class from 10 to 12, 9 to 10, then 10 to 11, so on and so forth. So, every teacher comes when its schedule is. If no schedule is given, every teacher will come to the class at the same time, then who will teach? So, scheduling means the slot or the timing has already been booked. So, accordingly the station will access. So, deciding a schedule or a reservation is important, where reservation polling and token passing will be done. And third is the channelization of protocol. Now, we do not do any scheduling, because scheduling also consumes time. Where time is a constraint or a limit, that you cannot have delay more than a specified limit, then this scheduling and reservation consumes more time. Therefore, what do we do? Channelization. That means the whole spectrum will be divided into small channels of some frequency or some time slots are given. So, every station is giving some specific frequency or some specific time during which the station will try to send the message. So, therefore, in channelization the whole spectrum is divided into small channels. So, the channels can be dedicated. If you go on the mobile phones you use today, where this is FDMA, that based on the frequency the whole spectrum is divided and some frequency band is given for the one user, other frequency band is given to another user, so on and so forth. Then time division multiple access, where time slots are divided, whole time is divided into small chunks. So, station 1 will take slot 1, station 2 will take slot 2, and so on and so forth. So, that is what, and then code division multiple access. So, now in this lecture we will be restricting ourselves to random access protocols only. So, the control access or the scheduling based reservation protocols will not be part of this coverage in this lecture. So, is the channelization will not be part of this lecture as well. So, now if you look at the random access protocols, we will talk about the carrier sensing multiple or multiple access, where we may be talking about Aloha protocol. Then we have carrier sensing multiple access, CSMA. Then we have CSMA CD, which you call carrier sensing multiple access collision detection. And then third is that the CSMA CA, that is collision avoidance. CA stands for collision avoidance. Now, if you look at the CSMA CD protocol, which you call also other way is as Ethernet. Ethernet uses CSMA CD, and in most of the local area network which use today, we are using CSMA CD. So, therefore, it is relevant to study here, because we use a local area network in our organization on day-to-day basis. And second is, when you are using wireless communication or an access point from where you are accessing the services either through your laptop or your desktop from an access point. So, we call it a CSMA, that is carrier sense multiple access and collision avoidance. So, for wireless it is CA, for wired it is CD. So, these are two very popularly used protocols in day to day. So, our focus will be only on random access and these protocols. Now, look at these random access methods. Now, multiple access may be based on CSMA, it may not be based on CSMA, and then CSMA is divided in two parts, that is CSMA CD and CSMA CA. Now, let us begin with Aloha protocol. Now, this is one of the protocol came in the beginning as a local area protocol, and it may be used for other purpose as well. In this protocol, and Aloha does not have any full form, it is a dance form or a music dance form in Hawaii, and it came from there. Now, in this protocol, any station which is ready to transmit data, if you have multiple stations accessing the medium, a shared medium, then any station which is ready with the data is free to transmit. It will immediately send. The moment a station gets data, it will send it. So, that means more than one station may get data at the same time or may be ready, become ready at the same time, and therefore, they will send at the data same time on a shared medium. Therefore, the chances of collision is very high. So, more than one station send at the same time. And therefore, we divide into a pure Aloha and slotted Aloha that we will talk about, and due to this high chances of collision, then the throughput of the protocol is very low. And then one of our aim in a random access protocol or in a network is to achieve high throughput as much as you can achieve and low delay. That is the primary aim of any protocol, is to have to achieve highest throughput as maximum throughput as much as you can have and the minimum delay of transmission of data from one station to another stations. So, keeping that in mind, Aloha gives a very low throughput, that is why it is not very useful in local area network. Now, how does it work? Look at this diagram now. If you look at, we have a base station, say for example, that blue box in the middle, and then station, there are 4 stations and they try to send data, it may happen to that base station or they may be sending to each other, does not matter. So, all stations may send at the same time. So, what will happen? There will be a collision at the base station, that is a possibility, or if they are this base station I am taking as a shared medium like a hub, say for example, and then all stations simultaneous or sent together at the same time, all data collides at the base station. Therefore, the communication will not be completed and the throughput will be very low. We take 2 channels, one is upload channel 40 is a 407 megahertz, the download is 413 megahertz. So, that means we are talking about all duplex channels where transmission and receiving goes simultaneously through the channel, whereas a station probably at the same time cannot do both the activities because it has a transceiver which can transmit at a time or may receive at the, it cannot do both the things at the same time because we assume that a station has only single transceiver. Now, having said this, how does an Aloha works? Now, that means if more than one station transmits simultaneously, if the collision occurs, then how it happens, because the moment collision occurs, the data is not transmitted, because even if the data reaches at the receiving end, it will have an error because it has already collided or interfered with another data or with another signal. So, data received will not be proper, therefore, it has no value, no information which is being transmitted will not be deciphered or detected by the receiver. Now, how does Aloha works? Look at this procedure. Now, and in the beginning, because the whole idea of this is when a station transmits, if the collision occurs, then the station has to retransmit the same frame, because in MAC layer we transmit frames and then the same frame has to be retransmitted. How long it will wait to transmit the same frame again? Now, the question is, first it must know that the collision has occurred, only then it will retransmit. And how does that information comes? Look at this diagram. In the beginning, when it start yellow here, and then all back off is set to the back off counter is set to 0. What does back off counter? I will tell about. Now, as soon as there is a data at a station, the station sends the frame and it sets its back off counter to 0. Then, after sending the frame in the medium, it waits, because frame will take some time to reach the destination. So, therefore, it has to wait. And then, as soon as the frame reaches the destination will respond back by transmitting an acknowledgement. And after sending the frame, that is why send the frame, after sending the frame, the sender is waiting for the acknowledgement to come. And as soon as the acknowledgement comes, yes, it is successful, then the transmission is over. Now, another situation may come that the acknowledgement may not arrive. Why? Because there could be two reasons that the acknowledgement does not arrive back to the sender. One, the frame transmitted has gone correctly to the receiving end or to the destination, and however, destination transmits an acknowledgement to the sender, but the acknowledgement is lost on the way because of the link failure. The acknowledgement is lost, therefore, the sender does not receive the acknowledgement. So, there is a loss of acknowledgement, though the frame has been transmitted to destination, but the acknowledgement is lost, therefore, the sender is not receiving the acknowledgement. This is one situation. Other situation is the frame which is transmitted by the sender collides with another frame which is transmitted by another sender. So, as I said, Aloha, more than one station which are ready to transmit, they can transmit at the same time. So, while station A sends, station B also sends, therefore, the frames of station A and B will collide. Since frames has collided, therefore, there is error in the frame, and even if this frame goes to the destination, then destination will receive this frame with error because of the collision. Since the frame is received with error, it will not send back any acknowledgement. So, with the erroneous frame, no acknowledgement is being transmitted back. So, in both the cases, or it may happen that the frame transmitted by a sender may not collide, but it is lost on the way because of the link failure. So, there are three situations. One, the frame transmitted got lost. Second, the frame transmitted was received with error. So, in both the cases, the acknowledgement will not come, not sent, therefore, not received. And in third case, when the frame is received with no error and properly, and acknowledgement is transmitted back, but acknowledgement is lost. So, there are three scenarios in which case the acknowledgement is not received back at the sender. So, in that case, the sender will increment the back off counter, say 1, then 2, after waiting for that specific interval of time, and it keeps on incrementing. And when this back off limit, right, that means it is waiting for a back off time, and then that back off is certain a random period is chosen, it has to wait for that time. So, when the back off counter increments to that point, there are two situations. The back off limit, maximum limit is not reached. So, there is a back off waiting time, wait back off time, and then it again makes an attempt. When the back off time, waiting time of the back off is over, then it again retransmits. And if the back off timer has reached the limit, then it will abort, that means no further transmission takes place. The moment I say this, the meaning hereby is that how long a sender should wait for before retransmitting the same frame. That means there is a back off time limit, it must choose a random period. Say it chooses a random period, say 5 units of time. So, the back off counter will be incremented 1 unit, then 2 units, then 3, then 4, 5. Then it reaches 5 units, then that waiting time is over, it retransmits. But it cannot wait for an infinite period of time. That means 10 units, 16 units, how long? If it is not able to transmit, because so in that case there is a maximum limit on the back off timer. So, if that limit is reached, then that means communication is not possible, it will be dropped. So, what we are saying is in both the cases, in case of a loss of acknowledgement or not receiving acknowledgement, it waits for a random period of time, and then after that random period of time is over, the station makes another attempt to transmit the same frame again. Now, there are two situations. One I said is based on this logic, the Aloha is divided into two categories. One is called pure Aloha, the other is called a slotted Aloha. Now, the moment I say pure Aloha, the procedure what I described is a pure Aloha. That means send whenever ready, if transmitted successfully, done. If not, or the collision occurs or lack of acknowledgement occurs, it waits for a random period of time, and when random period of time is over, then it makes another attempt or makes another attempt to transmit, and successful it may again collide, then it will choose a random period of time before retransmission. So, it makes attempt after attempts, and there is a maximum limit how many attempts it can make. If that limit is reached, achieved, then it will be dropped. That means it is assumed no communication is possible. Now, if you look at this scenario, what is happening is that any time a collision may occur till the frame reaches its destination. That means the moment it starts transmitting till it reaches at the destination, in between this period how much time it takes, collision may occur at any point of time. So, there is a high chance of collision, therefore, the throughput will be very low. Therefore, it says rather than pure Aloha, the other could be, other way could be or solution could be a slotted Aloha. That means divide time into slots. That means now if I say T1, a slot begins, after a specific period of time another slot T2 begins, after the same specified period of time the slot T3 begins, and so on and so forth. That means any station can only transmit in the beginning of a slot T1. If a station has sent at T1, it is fine, but if a station receives data between T1 and T2, it cannot send, it will wait till T2. It has to only send at next slot, that is T2. And then if any other station is ready with the data for transmission between T2 and T3, it cannot transmit because the slot has not begun. So, any station can send data at T1, then at T2, then at T3. That means only data can be sent in the beginning of a slot, and that means if the number of stations, if more than one station is ready at before the beginning of T1, then they will send simultaneously, then there will be a collision. After that, if a station becomes ready, no collision till the next slot begins. That means the collision period is only the beginning of the slot. After that, no collision can occur because they have transmitted at the same time, and then when the signal reaches or encounters each other, only at that point of time collision will occur. So, now the point is the probability or the chances of collision has been reduced from a longer period from beginning till it reaches to the destination. We have reduced it that at the beginning all stations are transmitted until their signal reaches to each other and collide, only then collision will occur. So, by slotted Aloha we have reduced the chances of collision to half. Therefore, the throughput of slotted Aloha is half of the throughput of the pure Aloha. So, that means slotted Aloha gives better throughput or double throughput than the pure Aloha. So, Aloha is divided in two parts, but still the throughput of slotted Aloha is not very high. It is 36.8, and for pure Aloha it is 18.4, that is double of 18.4 is 36.8. But whether you take slotted Aloha or you take pure Aloha, in both the cases the throughput is low. Therefore, they are not a very practical protocol which are used in or implemented in practice. That is what the Aloha protocol does, and therefore, there is a need, or it led to the development of other kind of random access protocols, and then we will move to the other kind of protocols, and that is we will move to CSMA, that is carrier sense multiple access protocols. Now, that gives better throughput than the pure Aloha. Now, continue with CSMA, what CSMA protocol, what does it mean and how it works. Now, this carrier sense multiple access protocol. Now, if you look at Aloha, what we said is whenever a station is ready, it starts sending. That means I am talking, somebody else comes, he starts talking at the same time without thinking what will happen. So, because one has to speak something, it is that kind of. Now, to avoid this situation, Now, the CSMA protocol was designed in which the name as the name suggests, CSMA, that is carrier sense multiple access. That means, when multiple stations are trying to access the medium, shared medium, so what will they do before they can have access to the medium? They will sense the carrier. Carrier means medium here. So, that is what the carrier sense multiple access mean. So, it sends the carrier before transmitting when a station is ready with the data. That means, if a station receives data, now before sending it will sense the carrier. Sensing the carrier means it has to sense the medium, that whether some signal is travelling on the medium or not. That is what sensing means. If some signal is already travelling on the medium, that means some other station is already transmitting data on the medium. That means, while I am speaking here, if somebody else comes, first he or she has to sense that something is being talked already going on. So, therefore, one will wait me to finish. That is what the situation is. So, same thing happens in case of CSMA. Now, that means, while already some data is being transmitted on the medium, and the station which sends the medium, because it found that the medium is busy, it will wait for the medium to become free. That means, it will not immediately transmit. So, that means, when the medium becomes free, then the station can transmit data. That means, you have avoided or you have reduced, not avoided, you have reduced the chance of collision to a certain limit. That means, when it was free, only I am transmitting, but still collisions may occur. Why? Because assume that there are station A, B, C, D, like 3 stations A, B, Z. Look at this diagram. We have 3 stations A, B and Z. Now, while B is ready to transmit, or say Z is ready to transmit, Z will sense the medium, that whether A or B are transmitting or not. It will not be bothered about A or B. It will only sense that something or some signal is travelling on the medium. That is what it is. When it finds that some signal is going on, then it will wait. Now, assume that A is transmitting some data and B and Z becomes ready for transmission. So, B will sense as well as Z will sense the medium, and both B and Z will found that the medium is busy because A is already transmitting. So, therefore, B as well as Z has to wait for A to complete its ongoing transmission. As soon as A completes its transmission, the medium becomes free. Now, we have 2 stations waiting, B as well as Z, and both are waiting for the medium to become free, and the moment they found that the medium has become free, both will transmit A and Z, and while A and Z both transmits, the collision occurs. Now, here the situation is, assume B is transmitting, A and Z are ready to transmit, and when the B's transmission is over, A and Z will transmit it at the same time, and therefore, the frame, because A transmits at T1 and Z transmits at T2, and they have a collision at some point in the middle here now, where the yellow that ellipse shows that the collision occurs. Now, the moment the collision occurs, the collided signals will travel back to Z as well to A. Now, at T5 it reaches as A, and at T4 it reaches at Z. So, both A and Z will come to know about the collision probably at different time, maybe sometimes simultaneously. Assume that if the collision had occurred in the middle exactly, probably both A and Z could have come to know about the collision at the same time. So, it does not make much difference whether it comes to know about the same time or different time. Now, once they come to know about the collision, then they must make another attempt to transmit the same frame, to make it sure that the frame which is to be transmitted ultimately is transmitted successfully. That is what the primary idea is. Now, having said this logic, that is, I said, even if the medium is sensed before transmitting and a station is waiting for the medium to become free, but still there are chances of collision in CSMA. Now, the CSMA is divided in two kinds of protocols, persistent and non-persistent. The moment you say persistent, that means while a station is, if a channel is busy, still the station will keep on sensing, that is persistent sensing. And if a station finds that the medium is busy, it will not continue sensing, it will wait for some time and then again sense. That is what called non-persistent. That means it will not continuously keep on sensing the medium when medium is busy, and when it continuously keeps on sensing the medium when medium is busy, that is called persistent. Otherwise, if it does not continuously sense and waits for some time, then again sense, and then wait again, it finds busy, then waits for some time and then again sense, and that is called non-persistent sensing. Now, look at this diagram again. If while A is transmitting, if Z sends the medium and finds that the medium is busy because signal of A is transmitting, then Z keeps on sensing the medium, and the moment it finds that the medium is free, it will immediately grab the channel and transmit. In other case, Z may sense and found that the medium is busy, and Z waits for some time and then again sense. Now, during this waiting time, the medium may become free, and while the waiting time is over, Z again sensing, by the time the medium would have again become busy. So, now in non-persistent sensing, it may happen that the waiting time may result into delay, but at the same time, keep this in mind, the chances of collision are reduced. Why? Because if more than one station are waiting for the medium to become free, they can send, the moment medium becomes free, while they are continuously sensing or persistently sensing, they will transmit immediately. But in non-persistent, because the waiting time, if both the stations try to sense the medium at the same time, if they found medium is busy, they will, both of them will wait for a random period of time before they again sense the medium. And this random period of time taken by both the stations may not be same. Like say in this example is B is transmitting and A and Z start sensing, and A and Z both will find that the medium is busy. Therefore, A and Z will choose a random period. So, the random period chosen by A may be different than the random period chosen by Z. If that happens, therefore, their random period will not expire at the same time. So, therefore, they will not again sense the medium at the same time, but still their random period, because we are randomly choosing the period, so that may also be same chosen, but the chances of choosing the same random period is less likely and very low. So, by using this mechanism, we are reducing the chances of collision. Therefore, the delay will increase, but the throughput may also improve. That is the possibility with non-persistent. Now, look at this. So, what we are saying in non-persistent strategy, on the left hand side of the diagram, the carrier is sensed by a station, and if it finds that the carrier is busy, it waits and keeps on sensing, waits and does not sense, and after waiting period is over, then it will again sense this carrier, and then if the carrier is busy, again same process keeps on looping around. If the medium is not busy, it will send the frame. That is what non-persistent mean. In case of persistent, on the right hand side, what you see is a station sends the carrier, and if it finds the station is busy, it will keep on sensing rather than waiting, it keeps on sensing. That is what persistent sensing means. If the medium is not busy, then it will send the frame with probability P. Now, here the moment you say probability P, what we are saying is, if P equal to 1, that probability is 1. So, that means while the medium is not busy after sensing, it will send with probability 1. That means it will always send, it will immediately send. That is one persistent CSMA. So, the persistent CSMA is again divided into one persistent CSMA and P persistent. Now, in one persistent, that means P equal to 1, it immediately transmits. Then if more than one station are waiting and they found the medium free, and they will send at the same time the collision occur. But with P persistent, what will happen is when it is sensing the medium, when the medium is not busy, that is no, then it will send a frame with probability P. That means if more than one station are waiting for the medium and the medium becomes free, then station A and Z, if they are waiting for the medium to become free, after sensing they sense that the medium is free, say A sends with the probability 0.2 and Z sends with the probability 0.3. That means they will not send at the same time. So, the sending probability of A is higher because it is 0.2, and that it will immediately after that second chance, every second chance it may send, and whereas after every 3 chance the Z may send. So, they will not send at the same time. So, what we are doing is you are not reducing, you are not increasing the waiting time by non-persistent, and it does, but you are also reducing the chances of collision that by setting some probability P of chance of transmitting after the medium is found free. So, that is what the difference between persistent and non-persistent, and within the persistent this is one persistent and P persistent. So, what we said, CSMA is persistent CSMA, non-persistent CSMA. In persistent CSMA it is one persistent CSMA and P persistent CSMA. Now, if let me go a little back, if I look at this diagram, what do I see here? This, the collision occurs at some point here, then how long the station will keep on waiting. Now, if the collision is not detected at this point of time, the only way out is that when the packet or the frame comes back to the station and it goes here and it does not send acknowledgement, then only if Z is waiting for the acknowledgement that Z is transmitting to B, but the frame of Z collides with A, then the B will not send any acknowledgement. So, Z will not receive any acknowledgement. So, that means Z has to wait for a fixed period of time to receive the acknowledgement. If during that period or after expiry of that period, if Z does not receive acknowledgement, then only it will come to know that there is some problem, it has to retransmit or there is a collision. Now, that is there is a delay in detection of collision as well as the delay is that in the retransmission of the frame, because the station comes to know after the full period of time when acknowledgement is not received that there is a collision. But it is therefore, if the collision is detected at the point where it has occurred, it will immediately intimate the sender that collision has occurred. Look in this diagram, if the collision occurs at this point, Z will, if you assume that there is no other obstacle in the medium, no longer delays, the Z is closer to the collision spot, whereas A is little away from the collision spot. So, therefore, Z will immediately receive the intimation that collision has occurred. Therefore, Z can immediately take the recovery action or the next action to be taken, whereas A will receive this information little later, and therefore, A will take this action, whatever action to be taken next, it will take little more time. So, detecting collision at the right time is important to reduce the delay. Now, so therefore, the collision detection is important. So, that is what our Ethernet, when used, it does, it detects collision and it immediately intimates the sender, and the sender may take the next action. The next action is a retransmission of the same frame, and that saves time. Now, how does it happen? Look at the procedure how CSMA CD works. Now, at the start, when a station is ready to transmit, it immediately sets its backoff counter to 0, sets backoff to 0, that is backoff counter to 0, and then it sends with the persistent strategy that it keeps on persistently sensing the medium, and the moment it finds the medium is free, it immediately sends the frame. Now, after sending this frame, if the collision occurs, yes, then the point where collision occurs, that station, nearby station will send a jamming signal, and then that jamming signal, when it is received at different station, that the increment, the back off counter starts incrementing, because it has spent that much time is over, it starts incrementing the back off counter. Again, if the back off counter has not achieved the maximum limit, then it will wait that whatever period of back off counter is there, it will wait for that period of time. If that is over, it will again start sensing and transmitting. If the back off limit has achieved the highest, then it will be dropped. Now, look at in the Ethernet, when it transmits in a local area network, maybe you have a switch or a hub, when it transmits, when the collision occurs, then what happens is that the station, the moment it comes to know that the collision has occurred, it sets its back off counter to a random period, that is called random back off period, and this random back off period is also called binary exponential back off. The binary exponential back off means that the back off time is every time doubled period, total duration. Now, say for example, if it is 0 at some time, if the first time the collision has occurred, it is 2, say for example 2 raised power 1, that is 2 unit of time. If the same frame has again collided, it is 2 raised power 2, that is total 4 unit of time. If the third time the same frame has occurred with the collision, then 2 raised power 3, that is 3 power, that is 8, and then fourth time with the same frame occurs, it is 2 raised power 16. So, every time the total period, total interval is 2 units, 4 units, 8 units and 6 units. That is the interval from where the random period had to be chosen is increasing or doubled every time, that is exponentially growing. So, now that means to select a random period from 16 times 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 15, it may be 0, it may be 5, it may be 6, it may be 11, anything. And the higher the interval, or choosing a random period from between 0 and 4 is less likely that 0, 1, 2, 3 any, and if between 0 and 8 you have 8 options, between 0 and 16 you have 16 options, and between 0 and 32 you have 32 options. So, number of options you are increasing. That means, if you choose 16 units of time, it has to wait for the back off counter to go up to 16 units. So, that is how it is, but it cannot go infinitely. In the practice, there is a maximum limit, it is I think 10. If the same frame collides 10 times, that is good enough. It drops that, it assumes that the network is not a feasible network to communicate. So, therefore, that is how it goes on. Now, this is for a wired network. Now, in a wireless network, we have a different situation now, because the collision detection is not possible in wireless network. So, what it does, here we use a CSMA CA, that is we avoid collisions. How do we do? In the beginning, it starts and it sets the back off counter to 0, and it uses persistent CSMA, and after waiting, sensing persistently, the moment it finds a channel free, it waits for a interframe gap time, IFG, waits for IFG, interframe. That means it decides between two frames there must be some frame gap, that is IFS time or interframe spaces time. It may be short frame, we may have a little other kind of DIFS frames which is not part of this. So, it waits for a interframe gap time, and then again it waits for a random period of time. That means it waits for a interframe gap time, because there are short frame gap times, there are little longer gap frames, because some data are to be immediately sent, like acknowledgement has to be immediately transmitted. So, before transmitting acknowledgement, it waits for a small period, whereas before transmitting data, it waits for a longer period. So, if one station and both the stations are sensing and they find channel is free, one is waiting for acknowledgement, other is willing to transmit data. So, one is waiting for short period of time, other is waiting for little longer period of time. So, the shorter period of time gap will be over first, so it will get the higher priority. But after waiting for that, both will wait for a random period of time, and the random period will not be same. Whose random period expires first, that will send the frame first and set the timer accordingly. So, and then waits for an acknowledgement. If it gets acknowledgement, succeeds. If it doesn't, then it goes on and waits for backup period of time, and then ultimately again sends and retransmits the frame. That is what the wireless communication works. So, in this lecture at the end, what we talked about Aloha, we talked about CSMA, and in that we talked about CSMA CD and CSMA CA in hurry, and we talked about what are different kind of CSMA, that is persistent CSMA, non-persistent CSMA, and then persistent CSMA is divided into one persistent and peak persistent. And thank you very much.
With this note, we would like to thank Professor D.K. Loblial for giving us a very good session. Professor Loblial, we have talked about CSMA. Can you please once again give a brief description of CSMA so that the students would get a brief idea?
See, the primary idea here is when we share a medium, like if I am talking here, if you start talking at the same time, then both will talk at the same time, the collision occur, nothing will be heard by, even people hear it, they will not be able to understand what we are talking about. So, that is what is called collision. If simultaneously, if the medium, this air medium is shared by both of us. So, therefore, what you are doing, you are waiting and sensing that I am talking, so therefore, you have to wait. So, the moment I finish, only then you talk. While you are talking, I was waiting, because you to finish, then only I will talk. So, the collision does not occur. In CSMA, what we do is, a station when it is ready to transmit data, it is only watching or sensing the medium whether some signal is going on or not. If the signal is going on, it will wait. If the signal is not going on, then it is free to transmit. So, that is what we call a carrier sensing. It senses the medium carrier and then only it transmits. That is what the primary idea of collision, so that the throughput, what you call is the throughput, what you call is how many packets or data are transmitted per unit time, that you call throughput. One of the idea is maximum data per unit time should be transmitted in a network, and the delay should be, it must be transmitted as quickly as possible. So, reduction in delay and achieving maximum amount of data is transmitted in a unit time. If it is minute, in per minute, if the unit is second, per second. That is what the idea is. If we do not control it, then collision will occur, then we have to retransmit. So, we are increasing delay, we are also reducing throughput, because in that period of time we should have transmitted the next data, whereas you are retransmitting the same data. So, that is what the whole idea of the protocol is.
The idea of the whole protocol, so that the data is transmitted within
quickly,
the
and then and more data is transmitted in a small period of time.
So, this is the only advantage of these protocols, we would say. Are there any other advantages?
That is what the primary aim of any protocol, any network is, but in different scenario, different protocols are used. This is what generally we use in our local area network. If you are using the moment you call Ethernet, so we are using this kind of protocol. So, that is why I chose to talk on those protocols. There are other protocols as well, but they can be used for different scenario. So, in wireless we use CSMA CA, in wired we use CSMA CD. So, that is why these protocols become relevant to talk about, because we use in day-to-day network which we use in our organizations.
Definitely. So, we would like to thank Dr. D.K. Loblial once again for giving us a very vivacious session. Dear friends, your comments, your suggestions, your feedback is very important for us. We believe that you might have watched this lecture. If you want to access the lecture, or if you want to see the lecture the number of times you wanted, then we would like to share that we would be uploading this lecture on YouTube very soon. So, you can access this lecture, watch this lecture the number of times you wanted, as well as if you feel so that you have any query or any question to be answered, then definitely you can mail us at info.cc@nic.in. Your suggestions are very important for us. So, keep watching us and keep writing us. We would be meeting again very soon. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.